Hey everybody, hi Facebook. We are so excited for Beyond the Steps today. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We have Ashley Mowrey to talk about performance anxiety and stage fright. Big topic, especially as we head into competition season and recitals in a few months. So hang on for just a few minutes. We'll get started in about 2 or 3 minutes. Hi, everybody on Facebook. I see you logging on. Thank you for joining us today. We have the wonderful Ashley Mowrey, who's going to talk to us about stage fright and performance anxiety, a very timely topic. So hang in there with us for just a few minutes. We're going to get set up. We got about 1 more minute before we get started. Priya, are you ready to get underway?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, the gang's all here. As we are every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Some of you join us every week. We've got people here in Zoom that are our weekly regulars. We have people out on Facebook that are our weekly regulars. Welcome to Beyond the Steps. I don't even know what day it is. The 22nd of January,
Can you
2021.
believe that?
I know.
That's so crazy. Where did this month go?
We're almost done with January. So that's just a crazy thought. Just to introduce myself, I'm Melissa McDaniel with Turning Point Dance Creations. We've got Bree Zabrowski from Apollo Performance here with us as well. We're here together every single Friday, and we are so excited to be here today to talk about how we can help dancers with stage fright and performance anxiety. As we head into our competition season, as we head into our recitals, this is going to be so important that we support our kids who have these challenges and make sure that the experience that they're having during their performances, during their competitions, during conventions are a positive one. These students love dance. A lot of times when you see it, you're like, well, do you not really want to do it? Of course they want to do it. They love dance, but they just have this challenge that they have to overcome and they really need support. And in addition to that, they're getting pressures from being judged, from family, from peers, and that's just another layer of stress and anxiety that they have. So students need help managing it, and I think that we as dance educators need to be equipped to do that. So we have Ashley Mowrey here, and I am going to let Bree tell you a little bit about our wonderful guest.
Yeah, welcome back. Ashley is back with us again. We talked to her before about just a healthy mindset for dancers. We're excited to have her perspective again today, especially as Melissa said, as we're heading really deep into competition and convention season where anxieties are usually really high for kids. And on top of that, we have the added layer, right, of a pandemic going on and nothing is normal around us at the moment. So I'm sure that adds to it. But Ashley, welcome back. For those of you that don't know Ashley, she's a mindset coach and educator for dancers, and she's based in Arkansas, but she works with dancers on Skype and Zoom and in person. So you can book a session with her anytime that she's available. She holds a BA in psychology from the University of Arkansas. She's a certified professional coach through Coaches Training World. And she is also a specialist with Doctors for Dancers. So she's also a blogger for Apollo's the Muse. And we love having her work with us on that every month. She trained as a competitive dancer. So she definitely recognized during that time the importance of a healthy mindset and how that correlates. It's just as important of a training tool as using our bodies and our technique. And so again, you can kind of we're going to talk about how you can get a hold of Ashley and book her services for your dance studio, or if you have an individual dancer that needs some help in this area, there is hope, and Ashley can help you with that. So Ashley, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bree and Melissa. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yeah, we love you. We always love having you on. You're probably going to see her a lot on this show, but so I want to get right in with athletes. There can be a tremendous amount of pressure, both mentally and physically, to achieve optimal performance. And this is just not with dance. This is with everything. We know dancers are athletes. That is undisputed at this point, in my mind anyway. But they're the only athlete that practices their sport by actually doing their sport. Do you think that pressure is higher for dancers than other athletes? And if so, why?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure that there's actually ever been a research or comparative study in this. So this is more opinion based, but from all of the research that I've read regarding dancers, it's that combination of, as you say, dancers are athletes and we're also artists. And I think it's that combination. We are required to perform at like peak athletic ability, but we also are required to tell a story and be artistic and emote and connect with the audience. And with dancers, there's a lot of perfectionism that comes with that too. And so I think that combination, definitely performance anxiety and stage fright, are very prevalent in dancers.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So Melissa, let's get right in, because I think for people like me, what is the difference in the two, right? And that's I think leads us into our first question.
Right. So I think the definition is very important, because stage fright, I think some people look at as like, oh, she or he is just scared, throw them out there. And then performance anxiety, a lot of times I have found that dance educators push students through that.
I have, and I will admit that I have done that.
If you just yell enough, or if you just train enough,
or coax,
you'll
just
get over it. Yeah. So are the two things different? Are stage fright and performance anxiety different?
So they're pretty much the same. They can be used interchangeably. Stage fright is the more common term that, when we see a kid that is scared to go on stage. Stage fright's probably what we're going to say. Performance anxiety is sometimes we use for a more heightened sense of that, where it's, even more than stage fright, but they can be used interchangeably. And the key here with performance anxiety and stage fright is that it can be both cognitive, so thinking patterns, and somatic body experiences. So some kiddos are going to have both. Some kiddos are going to have neither. Some kiddos are going to have one more than the other. So cognitive being like negative self-talk, thoughts of failure, thoughts of I can't do this, I'm not going to go out there, worst case scenario thought patterns in their head, where somatic experiences is the revved up, jittery, sweaty, it can also be like somatic experience of like lack of focus. A lot of times teachers think that lack of focus is lack of focus. It can actually be a way that performance anxiety presents itself. And so it is both cognitive and somatic.
So is there some semblance of that is like deemed acceptable / normal to have as a dancer or athlete, or is it as all of it just we have to address it in a certain manner, no matter how minimal or extreme it may be? I mean, is there some element of that that's just normal?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bree. There is definitely some element that is normal. And there's actually some research to suggest that minimal to moderate somatic performance anxiety, so the jitters, is actually can help your performance sometimes. Sometimes that adrenaline can help your performance. But I think our instinct to like just push them out there, which I've totally done too, is where we kind of sometimes make it worse. So like even with the kiddos that it's minimal, sometimes we can exacerbate it by, doing the things that we think are helpful but don't really help.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you think that dancers experience stage fright and performance anxiety more than other athletes?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's that combination of being an artist and an athlete. I also think the whole, especially like let's take for example, the competition dance world. You are competing against your teammates, like, and as a team. And you are also like being critiqued and judged and getting feedback by these famous people that you admire and respect and look up to. And so I think that combination of stuff can bring a lot of performance anxiety out.
Do you think that, and I'm getting totally off topic and going way down a rabbit hole here.
It's okay.
But do you think that there is a danger in starting children too young?
That's a great question.
In this arena of competitive dance, do you think that can foster a sense of performance anxiety before they're able to mentally handle it?
I think I have mixed feelings about age and competition dancers. I actually think that like the younger dancers at first have less performance anxiety. Like you see those little 4 or 5-year-olds that just go out and like, they don't care at all that there's an audience. They think that everybody in the audience is there for them. And so I think that there's an element of childhood that really can decrease performance anxiety. However, I think the problem is our mindsets with those younger dancers, like how we teach their mindset. Because if from a really young age, they get really attached to that praise and that criticism, and they have a very fixed mindset of like, oh, this is, like they take feedback and criticism really personally, then I think that we go down a bad path. But I think if from day one they are in a healthy environment that is supportive, that is growth mindset oriented, that is all feelings are welcome, all experiences are welcome, mistakes are opportunities, then I think it can be okay. And I think in that circumstance, you're not going to see a big difference in performance anxiety from little ones.
Does it depend on the child too? Because really, one child who's 5 may handle that pressure in that situation really well. And then another 5-year-old, it's just not for them. And so you really have to gauge by the child, I would think.
Yes, I completely agree, Bree. And so that with performance anxiety, there are definitely like students that are going to be more predisposed to performance anxiety. There is like, just like any other form of anxiety. So performance anxiety is a subtype of social anxiety. And so there are going to be certain factors in each person that could make them more prone to it. But environment definitely has a huge impact too, as well as like their relationships to their parents and their teachers and their teammates, and all of that.
I'm going, my brain is Rolodexing through like students I've had over the years. And when you have a really talented young child, I was always, as a director, very, very hesitant to put kids in the program that were under the age of 7, just really hesitant about that for a lot of reasons. But occasionally I would have this child that is just so like the potential, it just oozes potential, which you look at kids like that, you're like, oh, I can't wait to, get my hands on you and just be able to work with you just in any way and just maximize all this crazy potential you have.
Absolutely.
But if that child, whoever it is, has struggles with performance anxiety, or like you said, isn't receiving feedback in a healthy, constructive way, no matter how it's presented, and sometimes it's how it's presented, and I won't negate that, but is that enough? No matter how much that potential is there, is that a sign that they should not enter the competition circuit at that point?
That's a really great question. And I think if you're in that situation, teachers, I think to try these tools and try what we're going to talk about today and try and work with that dancer, because I think that's the other thing is I think so many times kiddos, and especially like younger kiddos, can get like labeled as like, oh, she's the girl with performance anxiety, or oh, she's the girl who struggles before every competition, or she freezes or whatever. And we want to be really careful not to label kids from a young age, because that label is going to stick with them. But I think if you can, in a really like empathetic way, teach them these skills, help them recognize what this is, help them recognize what's going on, and work with the parent on strategies, I think you can definitely work with them, but I would not ever like push it on a kiddo. Like if you're continuing to work on these skills, and they're still super resistant, I would wait. But I would also look at, like, there might be with kiddos like this, it might take a few competitions. Like they might, the first few competitions might be a wreck for them emotionally. And I would say, as long as you are trying to use these skills and trying to use all of these things as a learning opportunity, not a, oh, you did it again kind of thing, then I think you can definitely grow and move past it.
Thank you. That's all great information. So why is it that some people struggle with stage fright and or performance anxiety and others don't? Is this a conditioned response, or is it something more innate? You know, like you're either born with it or you're not.
Yeah. It's both. It's both. And so there's definitely like personality traits and a predisposition for performance anxiety. But there's also the environment is a huge part of this. The relationships, how the teacher is, how the parents are, their relationship to their peers, any past fears, anytime if they've seen somebody else struggle with performance anxiety, sometimes that they can pick up on that. And so it's a combination of things.
Okay. What are some things that typically happen in the dance community, specifically in our environment in the studio, that can create stage fright and performance anxiety in our students?
Yeah. So a few things. I would say sometimes lack of preparation and practice. Like if it's the first competition season or first competition of the season, and we threw this and we finished this dance last night, which I know we've all been there. I know it happens. I've done it too. But it does. It can add to performance anxiety. I also am a really big proponent of, I think, changing choreography or blocking at the last minute is going to increase performance anxiety. You are practicing, you are preparing them for what's going to happen. And if you change it backstage, other than, sometimes there's circumstances you have to. But I'm a big proponent that that's just going to increase anxiety all around. Also, some other things that happen in the studio, like if there is a belief of fixed mindset in the studio, so like talent is more important than hard work, or if feedback is given and received in a really personal way and a really like personal criticism way, that can definitely lead to more performance anxiety. Harsh reactions or lack of support if mistakes and to perceived failures can definitely hurt and increase performance anxiety too.
I feel judged, Ashley.
I know. No, Melissa, let me tell you, I need to like have a, label, but like I've done all of these things. I taught for 10 years. I was the director of a company. Like I made all of the mistakes. So now I could look back and be like, oh yeah, that's what was going on there. So no judgment at all. But yes.
Oh goodness, I've done all of these things at one point or another. We have, especially that whole, we finished this last night deal. So we have a question on Facebook that I think is a really good one that kind of leads into this from Gina McFadden.
Yeah.
What are some things?
Gina.
Actually, hey Gina, always so supportive, always here. What are some things that students can do kind of immediately before going on stage, or maybe even the morning of a competition, probably whether they have performance anxiety or not, that they can do to kind of prevent this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I am a big advocate for pre-performance rituals. And I think they are highly specific to the person. So I think our job as educators is to give dancers a lot of ideas of what that could look like and be very flexible into what works for each dancer, because each dancer is going to be so different. Like some dancers just want to sit there and chat and distract themselves. Some dancers need like quiet time. So I think going over some different ideas of pre-performance rituals with your dancers. I also think there's actually been a lot of research to show that like too much caffeine the morning of a performance can really affect you. So I know a lot of our, teens and seniors really love that caffeine fix in the morning.
And get
yes. It's huge. I know. And that's hard as a teacher. Like that's really hard. And I would not like restrict it. I would just make them aware of it, and they're allowed to make that choice. But if they might want to notice, like, hey, after you have that huge iced coffee, how do you feel? Do you feel too jittery? Do you feel too revved up? Other than that, I think the teacher's teaching coping skills, and so I think in a little bit we're going to get to some coping skills. But I think teaching coping skills that dancers can have either to be proactive about the performance anxiety, or if the performance anxiety comes up, that they can use.
Right.
I know we have another question on Facebook, but this brings up another question for me. I'm sorry. I'm just.
Yes, no, you're good. Go.
So I'm a runner. So yes, because this is so hitting me in so many ways. But I'm a runner, and what I mean by that is in my earlier teaching years, I would say half my career, I was run it again before they go on stage, right? And then my more mature years in my career, as I moved into a director and a teacher and a studio, manager, I recognized, for example, there are kids that would want to run it 5 million times before they go on stage. And then there were kids that wanted to be off in a corner with their ear pods in, and they didn't want to talk to anybody. And then there were some that were like just chilling straight
laid out with a soda. Just
like they don't have a care in the world. And for me, type A personality, those kids would drive me nuts, because I'm like, get out there and run your dance. But I recognize that they all kind of needed their own things. So eventually I laid off. But can that mentality of run it until they're going on stage, or run it once, go backstage, and just, can that alter their performance anxiety and their stage fright as well? Can that have an impact on that?
Yes, very much so. And Bree, I so relate to you. I was the teacher, like in my early teaching days, I was like, we are having a rehearsal right now, like backstage, it was
I still do that.
Like, and so, no, you're good.
We are learning too. We always say we are learning too.
You're learning, yes. And so I think it has to be a balance. And I do think, Bree, as you observed, that like every kid is going to respond differently. And I know those kids that are like chilling, it's really hard for me. I'm like, are you warm? Are you ready? Like, are you prepared? And so it's that balance of like giving them the tools to be ready, but also like knowing what is going to work best for each kid. So my rule of thumb is like, run it once. If you need to run like lifts or partnering or anything like that, and then let it be up to the students, see how they feel, and then also tune in. If you have that kiddo who's running it 500 times and she keeps messing up this part, tune into that and encourage them, like, hey, don't, you want to be careful. You don't want to be like, hey, stop, but you want to approach it and say, hey, I noticed that you keep falling out of that. Let's give it a rest for 5 minutes. I think you're good. You've hit it every time in rehearsal. You've got this, and just help bring them out of it, because some of those perfectionist students are going to get like really stuck on that.
Yeah. And we have, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have a really quick one. And I know this is for me. I have a really bad, no, I'm not even gonna say it's a really bad habit. It's just me. It's what I do. I have a rule, a steadfast rule. If you run off stage, I'm gonna turn you around and send you right back out. So you should run the other way. And
So Ashley, can we Hail Mary our way out of that, or is that okay?
right.
Or
I'm trying to think. I think, I've never been asked that question.
I'm stumped. I mean, all my kids know you run off stage, I'm going to turn you back around and push you right back out.
Yes. I think that that's okay. Depending, I think it might be different for each kid. I think it's okay in the moment, as long as you, not after the performance. After the performance, it is love. It is, hey, you went back out there. You got this.
That's also a really great point.
Like right after the performance, I do not think that there should be any mention of critiques or feedback until you're in the studio. Like, I just think your mindset can get the dancer's mindset can get so wrapped up in stuff so easily. So after the performance, love, back in the studio, hey, let's explore what happens. Let's talk about it. Let's recognize what happened. Let's recognize those fears. Let's normalize it. Let's work on these coping skills. Which coping skills do you want to use next time? Okay, what's our plan? So yeah, I think if it's working too, like, and it gets them back out there, they actually do it and they don't fall apart afterwards, because it could give them a sense of accomplishment going back out there too,
See, Melissa, that's good. That's not terrible.
I've only had one student ever do it. I only needed one example. It was one example. And now everybody else is like, I'm just gonna muddle through this out here on this.
Gonna keep going.
It just takes one time. But Casey is in the chat on Facebook as well, and she has a couple different comments. If it is innate, are there warning signs for a kid that you should not push to perform, or is it something to push them through? And go ahead and answer that one first, then I'll read you the other one.
So specific warning signs for a kid that this is a no-go.
Yeah. I think we have to do our best to, if they are willing, right? Because some kids do not, they don't want to push through it. They don't want to learn the skills. They don't want to fight.
They're done.
Or just in general, like, is she talking about like before they get the stage, or like you're at competition?
Before.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say like, if you're at the studio and you see these warning signs of this kid having performance anxiety, I think have conversations about it. Have how I'm noticing these things. This is what this is. This is what's happening. I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you. And I think a huge question that both teachers and parents can ask more often is, what does support look like for you? How can I best support you in this moment? And some kiddos are going to go like, I have no idea. Like, I don't know what that means. And so you might have to give a few different options. At competition, is it going to make you more nervous if I talk to you about this, or do you want to not talk about it? Or, what can you do? What support do they need in those moments? What does that look like for them? And then also, I think you would teach them coping skills. Now, if a student is like season after season, I would also say, hire me. Let me work with them, or another, mindset coach, or sports psychologist, or anything. Let's work with them for a few months and see. And then I think at the end of the day, it just has to really be like a conversation between everybody involved, the teacher, the parent, the student, and what is best. Is this going to like forever negatively impact their self-esteem and their self-worth? And if it is, then like, we probably need to scale back a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe the competition circuit, because I know a lot of this applies to competition dancers. Maybe that isn't the place for that particular student, to avoid their mental health and their mental well-being, as well as the team and the program that is in place, right?
Yeah.
It protects both. Now, the one more question, and then I know we have to get to the next segment. We all know the yelling teachers that humiliate kids for messing up. This is from Casey. Can this cause long-term effects? And yes, we do all know those teachers. So
Yes. Yes, they can. Yeah. It actually, I think there's actually a huge amount of trauma in the dance world from those teachers. And I think, it's so normalized, and I think it's so like, well, this is what my teacher did and this is what I went through. But yeah, it can have really lasting impacts. One of the actual like most common things about our inner critics is that they can echo upon critical voices in our lives. And so I see that a lot of times with dancers is like the voice of that yelling teacher becomes their inner critic, and that's, that negative self-talk that they hear. So yes, definitely. And I say that with so much love because like I've been in those shoes too. Like there's been rehearsals afterwards where I'm like, oh, okay, that was a little harsh. Scale it back, Ashley. But I also know, like I work with teachers, and we work on skills to have them have a healthy mindset so that they can teach from a place of peace and a place of love instead of the yelling and humiliation.
Right.
yeah, thank you.
So
Yeah.
And I definitely want to touch on, before I move to the next topic, the fact that I do think that yelling teacher has become a normalized thing, and not only normalized, but a sought after thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
People are like, yeah, I want the one that's going to humiliate my kids the most.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well, and I think people know ahead of time that it's going to be hard to deal with,
Yeah.
right? But I think in people's minds, they equate that type of personality and that type of persona with discipline and with
Yes.
somebody who gets results.
Yes.
And I think it's important to know as educators, there's different ways we can achieve those same results in a more
Yes.
positive, healthy way.
Yes,
Right.
completely agree.
So if a student is experiencing stage fright, Ashley, or performance anxiety, what are the do's and don'ts of handling the situation?
Yeah. So I think something that I hear so often from my clients is that they are so scared of judgment from their teacher. Like they're scared that like they don't want to even show signs. And now I know most kids are going to have a hard time not showing signs of performance anxiety if it's really bad, but they like don't want to talk to their teacher about it because they're scared of like being labeled as like emotional or like overreactive or too much, or their teacher is going to just tell them to like suck it up. So I think be aware of that and be aware that like this is a fear that I hear from a lot of students. I think don't tell them to stop it, to block it out, to let it go. Like I think we have to normalize it, and then also help them learn skills to move through it. Also, don't bring your own emotions and reactions into it. Like I know it can be really frustrating and really annoying when we have this kid who's like crying backstage, or like that she's so prepared and she's so ready, but she's just like freaking out. And so I know like take a moment to check in with your own emotions and don't bring those into the conversation, and go in with more like compassion and empathy. As far as do's, I think it all starts with conversations with your students. What is performance anxiety? What does it look like? And I do workshops on this. So if this is something you're interested in for your studio and you want to bring me in with teachers or students or parents or whatever, but just talk about what it is, why it happens, like we're talking about today. And then also I think teaching coping skills. And so I have a few different coping skills we can go through right now if you guys want to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of these, I'll remind you guys too at the end, but like most of these coping skills are found in previous blogs that I've done for Paula. And so I think we'll add the links here in a little bit for those. And they're also like on my Instagram and stuff. But okay, so have you guys ever?
Before you start the coping skills, I want to have you make sure roping in. We have a comment on Zoom. What practices and skills are helpful for kids that forget their dances once they're on stage, especially with solos and duos? So if you could kind of roll that into this conversation of practices, that would be helpful.
Yes. And for that too, I actually am doing a workshop for Doctors for Dancers in February on that. And so that's going to be on Doctors for Dancers Instagram and website in early February. And we're doing like, why do dancers freeze? Why do dancers forget choreography? It's all fear-based. It's all, so when we are in our fight, flight, freeze, we cannot access the learning and creativity part of our brain. And so we have to shift out of that fight, flight, freeze response and into a more grounded place. And so all of these coping skills that I'm going to mention are going to help us get out of that state and into a more grounded state. So you could use these, but also the workshop will go into more detail.
Awesome.
Great question.
Thank you.
So do you guys know this is such a popular thing for dancers to do backstage, but when they shake their hands, like the 8, 8, 7, 7, have you ever seen that ritual?
No.
I have not.
No, you haven't? We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one?
No.
Okay. Okay. So it was super popular. It was super popular. It's like what me and my dance friends always did. And it was super popular. And then one of my clients last year, like asked me about it. And I was like, you do that too? And so
anybody watching know what she's talking about? I've never seen this.
Okay, I'll show it.
We're too old in our day.
Clearly, I was gonna say, Elizabeth says
no idea. Okay, I will show you. So it's gonna look silly, but shaking and wiggling is actually incredibly helpful and supportive of our nervous system.
How do you know this? One of my students is on here, one of my former students who now teaches me, like, yes, I know about it. You do? How?
Okay, so I want to do this. Tell me.
Okay. So you go from 8 to 1 on each hand. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and just as hard as you can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, and all the way down to 1.
Okay.
Yeah. So you keep going back and forth. 8, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. And just as hard as you can, like flick it off, like you're, flicking something off. Shaking and wiggling resets our nervous system.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna be doing this all the time.
Yes. It can help really too if you're feeling really frustrated, or in those moments where we just really want to react in a situation, that can help a lot. And so that can help bring our nervous system back into balance, and it can help deactivate that fight, flight, freeze response.
McFadden is on here saying maybe we should just build these shakes into the choreography.
Probably.
That's gonna be a new trend for 2020 and 2021.
Everybody's doing this on stage. Yes.
Yeah,
yep.
I've done this like innately. Like I've
it's
done
natural.
that.
It is. Yep.
But I think you have to do it longer, baby.
Yep.
That's the trick.
And I think the dancers love it because it's like, you start with the count 8 and you go, it's like, it's a little, and it's a ritual too. And it's a ritual. That's a great example of a ritual. Like that's what me and my dance friends backstage, we used to do that like together right before we went on stage. So that's a really great one. Another one I'll teach you, and this is in my blogs too, and I think I have an Instagram post about it, but 4, 7, 8 breathing. So when we are in fight, flight, freeze, or when we're really anxious and nervous, we need to use our diaphragm to breathe. And there's actually been a lot of research to show that if we can double our exhale from our inhale, it is going to activate the vagus nerve, which helps us calm down.
Okay.
So it's inhale through your nose for 4, hold it for 7, deep, long breath out through your mouth for 8. And as you're breathing in, you want your stomach to expand. You want to feel your stomach getting as big as it can, like a big balloon. So sometimes it can be helpful to place your hands on your stomach to feel. So as you breathe in, that stomach goes out. You hold it for 7, which can be kind of tricky sometimes if we haven't been holding our breath or if we're really anxious. And then deep breath out for 8.
Okay.
4, 7, and 8. Okay.
4,
I like
7,
that. I
8.
felt
4,
that. I feel
7,
that.
8. Yep. And you want to do it. So this is another thing. So that can feel kind of weird at first and different. And so that is one of those things you are going to want to teach that at the studio. Like, this is not something to be like, oh, do this backstage right now for the first time. This is teach it at the studio, practice it all together. And then it can be one of those things that you encourage your students to do, or you remind them of like, hey, you look a little bit nervous. Have you tried that 4, 7, 8 breathing? And help them, or do it as a team, you know, whatever that looks like. But that can be really helpful. And then in my other blogs, I have in my perfectionism blog, in my inner critic blog, and in my fear blog, I have a whole list of different coping skills in each of those that can help you. And all of those are going to be great to teach your students. And again, if you need more explanation for them or more guidance, please reach out to me. I can walk you through it, or we can book a workshop so that I can take you through each one.
Yeah, and again, we're going to post those links here on Zoom and Facebook so that you guys can read up on those blogs. They do have a lot of really great resources in there as well. And those are blogs that Ashley wrote for the Muse by Paula. So check those out. And Melissa, will you put those on Facebook as well?
Absolutely.
And then, okay. Do you have another question, Melissa? I think
yes.
you do.
Day 1 of the dance year. Day 1, you walk in. What is something that we can do to foster a positive, healthy mindset for our dancers to reduce the amount of stage fright? You talked a lot about, you know, before we get there, we need to be doing some things to set ourselves up in the studio to make sure that the culture is where we need it to be. What's one thing we can do on day 1?
Yes. Yeah. I think from day 1, you have to teach from a growth mindset. And if you don't know much about growth and fixed mindsets, there's so many resources online, like just Google growth mindset, fixed mindset, or reach out to me and I can give you some resources or workshops or whatever. But from a growth mindset, you look at opportunity or failures and mistakes as opportunities, right? So you don't fixate on them as a teacher. If somebody messes up, it's compassionately addressed and then it's moved on from. That is also in a growth mindset, feedback and the way feedback is delivered is not a personal criticism. It is information to your students. And then you teach them to receive it as information. So I think growth mindset. I also think encouraging goals and conversations about the process and not the outcome.
Okay.
So a lot of performance anxiety, I think, can come from pressure and expectations. A lot of times that's because our goals are only geared towards outcomes. I want to win first overall. I want to win the room. I want to, you know, whatever it is. And so if we can have a conversation and help our students set goals that are more geared towards the process and more geared towards like the rehearsals and the technique classes, and then also like the experience of the weekend, that is going to help them be more prepared for those weekends. And I also think another thing that is huge is, like, as a teacher, from day 1, I think you can do so much by just accepting all feelings, right? I know as teachers, it's really hard. Like, if somebody is having sadness or anxiety or anger, I think it's really easy for us to label them as like bad feelings, or keep it out of the studio, or check it at the door. And I get it. I get that we have to focus in class, but I also think when we do that, we teach our kids that there's not space for their feelings, and there's not space for them to experience things, because life is full of experiences that are sad, that are frustrating, that are anxiety producing, and to instead, all feelings are welcome, and this is how we can navigate those together, can also really help with, you know, performance anxiety too.
Well, and I love what you said about all these, you know, the shaking exercises and the breathing techniques. Like if we start incorporating those into maybe not every class, but the beginning of
Yep.
the class period or a rehearsal or before we run dances, and we do that as a group, you know, that
Yep.
breath work and all doing that together and kind of feeling and feeding off each other's energy, I think would be really cool too.
Yeah,
And that might set the tone for the season. How important
absolutely.
are I mean, I've heard you mention this, and I know from our previous conversations, parents are a big part of the process and involving them in the communication. What can they do at home to make sure that they're reinforcing and nurturing a positive mindset in their dancers?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the same things that I said for teachers as far as growth mindset. I think parents really can be such good role models and teachers when we parent from a growth mindset, as well as the all feelings are welcome. I know it is frustrating to be at competition and have your kid freaking out or crying, but the more you try to fix it, the more you try to stop it, the worse it's going to be. When really, if you just sat down with them and were like, tell me about it, tell me more, or what do you need? What do you need right now? I think that's so what I hear my clients say so much is like, I wish my mom would just ask me what I need, like instead of just trying to fix it or trying to do what she thinks I need. You know, what does your child need in that moment? I also think autonomy as dancers get older is something huge that parents can do to help with performance anxiety. And so autonomy meaning independence and choices. So having that conversation of like, okay, we have competition coming up. Do you want me in the dressing room? Do you not? And it is their choice. And you are respectful and you don't have you don't get offended. And it's not personal. It's not like my mom was like my best friend and we were so close and I didn't want her anywhere. I wanted her in the audience and I would text her after each performance and she would text me back and that was it, you know, and we were so close, but that's just what I needed. And so I think having those conversations of like, how can I best support you? What do you need? And what is going to make you feel most comfortable and confident? Because some kids do want their parents back there. Some parents do, or some kids do want a pep talk from their parents. And so it just kind of depends on those boundaries and that autonomy, what the student or child wants.
And conversely, is it something that would be helpful if parents, you know, maybe a child confides in their parent or they confide in a teacher? Is it important for the parent and the teacher to share that information so that everybody's on the same page, or is that kind of breaching confidentiality?
I think it's definitely helpful if you have consent from your kid, which
Right.
sounds like, I know sometimes it's like, well, they're my kid, I couldn't, you know, but I do think it's important in order for them to feel supported in either way. So kind of what I say to my clients, because what my clients share is confidential, but if it's something really big that I feel like could be really helpful to their parent, I'll say something along the lines of, you know, this sounds really important to you. It sounds like it would be really helpful for mom to know about this. What are your thoughts on that? And if they say no, I'm cool, drop it, no big. And then we keep having that conversation, right? But I think almost always they're going to say, yes, that's fine. If I think too, though, you have to have an understanding with both parties that this isn't going to be like, nobody is going to overreact about it. Nobody is going to make this a huge thing. Cause I think that's a scary thing for dancers is like, they don't want to tell their teacher that this is going on because they don't want them to be judged or think they're weak. They don't want to tell parents because they don't want them to try to fix it and freak out. Right. And so it's that everybody kind of has to be on the same page of like, okay, we're going to handle this like in conversations and with like a lot of respect and support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Thank you.
I think I want to move on to what the homework is. But even before that, I want to give dance teachers a little bit of homework. That we're talking about the things that you need to do in the studio to prepare, and you know, coming up with rituals, performance rituals at competition, and setting some things up. That means we cannot have performance anxiety because we do. Then that keeps us from blocking out the time we need to do those things for our students. So
Yes.
that's my personal piece of homework to some of the dance educators. But now to the expert. So Ashley, what's one action? We give everybody homework at the end of every one of these episodes. What's the one action that our listeners can take between now and next week to make progress in this area? The one thing.
Yeah. I want you to have a conversation with your students about it. So I want you to have a discussion, all ages. You can start super young, and it can just be like, hey, do you guys know what performance anxiety is? What do you think it is? What does it sound like? And then, offer some from this, and then also ask about their experiences. Have you felt like this? When did you feel like this? What do you think would be helpful in these situations? And then from there, once everybody is aware of it and it's really normalized, also, this is normal. If one of your teammates has this, or if you have this, it's not bad. That doesn't mean they're a bad dancer. That doesn't mean they're not okay for this company or ready for this. It's okay. We're here to support and work together. And then also from there, you can start teaching coping skills. But I think in the next week, have a conversation about it and ask about their experiences and see, what thoughts and ideas they have with performance anxiety, and then go from there.
That's great.
That's a simple, straightforward one. Ask your students, have a conversation, and don't wait till you get to competition, because it's already a crazy time. We also have some work for people to do that can really help support you on this journey to helping students with performance anxiety and stage fright. Taking the STEPS module, the STEPS initiative is on apolloperformance.com. It's a free initiative. It has a number of classes, some of them around performance anxiety and the mental health of our students. That's totally free. You can find it at apolloperformance.com. Also, YPAD is a wonderful organization that has a number of certifications that on a myriad of things that can help you make sure you're supporting your students. And we have a 25% off code for you to be able to take advantage of any of their courses at a discount. So Bree is popping that into the chat here in Zoom, as well as on Facebook for you to use it. Use the code Apollo25. And use that link to get there. And then earlier, Bree popped in some of the resources that Ashley gave us, some of the blogs that she's done: Perfectionism blog, Fear blog, and the Inner Critic. So make sure you refer to those further up in the chat, also on Zoom and on Facebook. So we have some resources. You have some work. There are people out here to help you. There are resources to help you. So please use those tools.
And before we close, I want to, Ashley, tell us how people can work with you, how they can find you, and make sure you mark your calendars to continue following Ashley and Doctors for Dancers so you can participate in that workshop that specifically is going to address a lot of the competition related questions and how to cope with these things during competition season, happening in early February, presented by Doctors for Dancers. Again, you can find them doctorsfordancers.com. And Ashley, tell us how people can get a hold of you, work with you, consult with you, all the things.
Yeah. So I also have a free workshop with Doctors for Dancers next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with Dr. Chelsea Parati. And we are going to talk about how to show up in 2021. Chelsea is going to lead you through a new way to look at goals. And so instead of looking at goals and resolutions, we're going to look at how you can have an intention and how that can be your guiding force. With the pandemic, there's so much unexpected. It's kind of hard to set some long-term goals right now. And so we're going to talk about intention, and then I'm going to talk about praise and criticism and how that often can get in the way of inner motivation and you reaching that. So that's next Tuesday. Go to Doctors for Dancers to register for that. And then my website, ashleymowrey.com, MOWREY. And I work with dancers one-on-one. I work with teachers one-on-one. And then I also do online workshops, Zoom workshops. And so if you're interested in any of these topics, just reach out to me. And my Instagram is at ashley.mowrey.mindset. And I have lots of free tools and resources there too.
Thank you so much. This was
Yeah.
a fantastic chat, especially as we head, like we said, into the peak of competition and convention season where anxiety and nerves and everyone are at an all-time high. So we encourage you all to use the information we've talked about with Ashley, the resources we've provided to create a more empathetic space for your dancers who may struggle with these issues. It's more common than we realize. The recording of this full episodes and all of our episodes will be available on Facebook at Apollo Performance and on Apollo's IGTV, both again at Apollo Performance, as well as Turning Point Dance Creations, which on Instagram, which is at _TPDC_on_IG. If you register to join us on Zoom, you will get a recording of each and every episode that we do. We ask you to please share these episodes in all the dance teacher networks. There seems to be a new one every week lately. Make sure that you put them in there. We want our dance community to know about this free resource. That is why we're doing this, to make our dance community a healthier, safer, happier place for everybody. It's our contribution to that. So please, finally, we're booking experts for the spring. Starting March 1st, we're looking for expert panelists just like Ashley who can join us, shed light on topics from racism, gender equity, sex abuse and prevention, health and nutrition, dance psychology, and of course, dance medicine and science. So if you are that person or you have a topic you want to hear about, please message us, info@apolloperformance.com. Thank you again to Ashley for joining us today. Thank you to Melissa for being on this journey with me and being the best co-host. Join us next Friday, January 29th, as we talk with Trisha Gomez from Rhythm Works Integrative Dance about how we as dance educators can better serve dancers that struggle with cognitive disorders. This is going to be your ADD, your ADHD, etc. If you're working with children, this episode and these resources are a must. So join us next week. Until then, we hope you guys have a great weekend and we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Ashley.
everybody.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.